is Diana from My Humble Kitchen. For those of you that are wanting to grow some heirloom seeds this year, or maybe just save some money, today I'm going to share with you how to start seeds indoors. So to start your seeds indoors, you're going to only need 3 things. You're going to need some seed starting mix, seeds, and water. Really, it's that simple. So when I start my seeds indoors, I typically like to use the Jiffy brand of organic seed starting mix. Now you can find this at Walmart, you can find it at Lowe's or Menards or Home Depot, really anywhere where they're selling garden supplies. Now I like to use this brand just because it's proved to be really good. I usually have really good germination with it. It really helps retain the moisture and it serves me well. And it's also a really, really great price. So that's why I use it. Now, if you want to go out and make your own, you can definitely do that too. You're going to need a mixture of vermiculite, perlite, and peat moss. So you're going to buy these 3 separate products, mix them together, and then you can do the same thing. You can use them to start your seeds. Now, the difference between a seed starting mix and say a potting soil is that the seed starting mix, usually made up of a vermiculite, a perlite, or a peat moss, is that there's really no nutrients within that mixture. Now, the whole reason you want this seed starting mix is because the mixture of the vermiculite and the perlite, what that does is it adds aeration to the mixture. The vermiculite is a volcanic ash, and what it does is when it gets wet, they actually expand. So as you're feeding, as you're watering, it expands, creates that aeration, some of that oxygen that the soil does need as well. And it allows those roots, as they start to grow into the soil. Now the peat moss, what it does is it retains the water. So having these 3 mixtures together allows a really great combination to keep the soil loose, to allow drainage, to allow the soil, the roots to grow into the soil, and it retains the water to increase your germination rate. So that's the premise of a good seed starting mix. Now, your potting soil, it actually has nutrients to feed the plant. At the beginning stages, the seed itself feeds itself. So before we go on and I share with you how to start the seeds indoors, I wanted to show you a little bit about the seed and to give you an explanation of what the leaves do in the growing process. So let's go ahead and start with that. So as you can see, I have already started this flat. Now this flat, I did use the Jiffy seed starting mix. You can see the little white specks in here. Now these little white specks is probably the vermiculite, some of the perlite. But let's go ahead and look at some of these seeds. So these are right here are some of my peppers. They just germinated. They're just coming up out of the soil. Actually, you might be able to see one. Yeah, like, where did it go? Like right here. It's just about to pop out. If you can kind of see that. Now these first original leaves, they're not true leaves. So these are what you would call seed leaves or cotyledons. Now what these do, they're actually part of the embryo and they're actually feeding into the soil. They're feeding the plant itself. So you wouldn't want to transplant these now. They yet don't need any nutrients. So as long as they're still in this first initial stage, they're doing just great in the seed starting mix. Now, as soon as they start to grow their first true sets of leaves, like this right here is, I think this is the kale right here, you can see that this is an actual true leaf. This is when the process of photosynthesis actually starts, okay? So now is when we're gonna actually start to need to be able to pull nutrients from the soil to feed the plant. Once I get 2 true sets of leaves, let's look at some of my tomato plants over here. Once I get 2 true sets of leaves, like in this right here, now I'm probably gonna let these grow just a tad longer, probably give them just a little bit more, few more days to grow. Then I will want to transplant. You can either water these, use a liquid fertilizer to give these plants nutrients that it's gonna need to grow, or you can transplant them into a different container with an actual potting soil mix, which has the nutrients within the soil. That's what I do. So I typically go ahead, I transplant into these red solo cups, and that's when they just grow really huge and beautiful. But anyways, what I'm going to do with you today is just share with you how to start these seeds indoors. Now remember, if this were not a coronavirus year, I would definitely have my seed starting mix, but because I have not gone out to do that or ordered any online, I'm just going to use some of this potting soil from last year. What you want to do is just get some of this soil into a large container. I just use this bowl every year. So it's a pretty good soil potting mix, which I usually use for my indoor plants, but for this purpose, for this year, this is kind of what I've been using. So once you have your soil in a bowl or a large container, add some water to it and work it in with your hands so that you wet all of the soil. I wish you could see this. Or all of the potting mix. Now, right now, what you're wanting to get is enough water in the mix so that when you squeeze it, you can literally see some of that water kind of running through your fingers, okay? Now the reason you want to do this is because you want a nice damp environment to encourage that germination. Now one of the things about this potting soil, there are just some sticks in here and things that I really wouldn't like. I'd rather have that Jiffy seed starting mix because they really do a good job of making sure it's nice and thin and just perfect for starting seeds. But once I can squeeze that, and this is probably pretty good, I'm hoping maybe the camera might see this, but when I squeeze this, see that water kind of coming out of it? That's what you're wanting. Now once your soil or your seed starting mix is wet enough to encourage germination, all you need to do is just put it into some flats or some, seed starting trays. So here are some that I had from last year. So all you need to do is just fill them up. And I like to fill them up until they fill pretty full. Now I don't, just compress all the dirt down because you do want to make sure that there's enough, that it's soft enough to encourage those roots to be able to grow simply into the mixture. But really, this is just about it. Now what I'm going to put in here is I'm going to grow some cabbages. I need some extra cabbages for the garden. I like to grow cabbages because I will ferment them once I harvest them. I like to ferment them into sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is just so, when it's fermented anyways, it's so beneficial for you because it's just filled in really great probiotics, lactobacillus, and it just encourages really great gut bacteria that helps in your digestion, but it really increases your immunity. So especially during times like this, eating sauerkraut, eating a lot of probiotic rich foods is something you want to be doing on a daily basis. So this is really about it. So from here, you just need to add your seeds in. Here are all of my seeds. I keep all of my seeds in the freezer. I have been doing this, for over 10 years now. Now I like to keep them in the freezer because it just keeps them going for a long time. I really don't have very many problems with germination, and I really think because I keep them in the freezer. So here's some seeds. I have some seeds here, but what I'm going to do is just grab some cabbages, plop a couple in here, and then get these underneath my grow lights. So let me go ahead and show you now what my grow light system looks like and how to go about keeping these under the lights and when they're ready to take out. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's my grow light setup. I have just right in my dining room in our homeschool room. It's just a 3-tiered shelf, wire shelf. Now, on this top one, you can see I have 2 shop lights. I generally like to have 2 shop lights and 2 shop lights because by the time I transplant all of these tiny seedlings up here, it's going to be full of red solo cups, and every shelf is going to be full. So right now, because of the coronavirus, I haven't headed out to go buy more shop lights, but that's definitely something I'm gonna have to do because each row really does need 2 sets of light to make sure that each of these seedlings are able to be under that light. Now, when you fill up your trays, you want to get them under the lights. And really they don't need light until they really sprout, they germinate and sprout. But it's really good to actually just to have them under there so that you don't forget, because I have done that. And let me show you why. Now, if you look at this Cosmo right back here, see how long he is? That's what's called leggy. Now you don't want your seeds to get leggy, because then really what you're wanting is a really thick and sturdy main stem so that you can have a really good growth development on there. So this just makes it a little bit more difficult. You can tell that I didn't have him under the lights until after he had sprouted, and he went fast. When these seedlings sprout without that light, they will reach for that light source very, very quickly. So as long as you have those lights above them right away, you'll see that they'll stay shorter and their main stem will develop nice and thick, and it won't shoot up, which will make for just a sturdier plant. You want them to be under here for 14 to 16 hours a day. So here are my some more of my plants. Peppers take longer to germinate, so they're just now starting to pop for me. I do have my tomatoes over here and onions and a bunch of annuals down over here. But what's going to allow you to remember to turn this on and turn it off is to be able to have a timer. So I just use one of these timers, and so I have to plug it in yet and plug it into here. But I can then just set this so that it turns on and off by itself, and I don't have to remember to turn these lights on. So once these do develop their first true sets of leaves, which most of them are just now starting to. Let me see if you can see right in here. See those 2 first sets of true leaves? So once they do that, I'm going to transplant them, put them into solo cups, and I'll put them back under the light until I'm ready to start hardening them off outside. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about the hardening off stage. So once you have your plants transplanted into a solo cup, or they're just at the right time to start taking them to plant outdoors, what you want to do is adjust them to the temperatures outside. You don't want to shock them. If you take them outside and just take them right into the sun, what they're going to do is they're just going to be shocked by the sun, the harsh elements, and they'll just completely just kind of fall over, and you may lose some. So after all of this hard work, you really want to pay attention to the hardening off stage outdoors. So what I do is once they're ready to be taken outside, I will put them out into the shade for about an hour on the first day. Then I'll bring them back inside. Then the following day, I'll take them out into the shade for about 2 to 3 hours, and then I'll bring them back inside. And then the day after that, I'll leave them in the shade for half the day, and then I'll bring them inside. And then the day after that, I'll probably leave them in the shade the entire day. And so from that point on, I'm going to leave them outside from now on in the shade. So from like the 5th day, I'll then move them into the sun for about an hour and then bring them into the shade. And then the day after that, I'll take them into the sun for 2 hours and then bring them back into the shade. Until the 3rd day, I'll probably leave them in the sun for, 3 hours, then maybe 6 hours, and then maybe the full day. So this does take at least a week to harden them off. It may seem like a lot of trouble, but really it's so worth it to take that time to just kind of move them around every day so that all of your hard work is not for nothing. And you'll be so happy once you actually start to put these into your garden, and when they start to develop fruit, you'll feel you'll feel proud and just and just so self-sufficient, knowing that you could take a tiny little seed, watch it grow into a small seedling, a small plant, and then once you're harvesting that fruit, it makes this whole process completely worth it. So anyways, I really hope you enjoyed this time. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or email me. I'm always open for emails. It may take a day or two to get back to you. But please, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe so that you can watch the next one. So anyways, thanks so much for joining me today. Have a great day. God bless you.